Usually the only individuals that'll know more than me about the game is probably speedrunners. But I mean, they have a vested interest in being able to exploit the engine as much as possible. And that's actually where some of my knowledge on the games comes from. It's just I also like watching speed runs. I've never been good enough to do speed runs, but a lot of the information I know about Source Engine comes from reading what speedrunners will come up with. And there's this one guy. He's got a whole series on the original Half-Life that I started watching. Probably going to continue that after I get done with these. But talking about different, tricks and, other unknown information in Half-Life 1. So I'll probably keep watching that while, whether I keep fucking with, Eli 01 or move to some other decompiled map, or if I just go back to, there's this one, like, totally original custom level I was making. I just, I will work with something on and off for a couple weeks, like that thing, like a truly just straight up new idea kind of custom map, but I'll get bored with it and go mess with something else for a while. So, dude, I've made thousands of maps through the years. Um, and a lot of them are, I mean, well, pretty much every single one of them is just totally unfinished. I'll make a hallway or a building and just kind of get bored with the idea and then never come back to it. Or sometimes I'll come back to something like 10 years later, right? Um, but yeah, I was working on this one sort of little urban area kind of thing, but I got sick of messing with it for the moment. But yeah, speedrunners usually know what's up. I'm pretty sure this guy's a speedrunner, but he's already mentioned a few things about Half-Life 1 that I didn't know, which I've never known as much about Gold Source because I first played the game on PS2. And actually, one of the things he mentioned on Anomalous Materials, C080 or whatever, the tram ride, like showing stuff, oh, look, this bit looks different in the PS2 version. It's like, yep, I mean, that was the way I played it originally. I played on PS2 in 2002. I got the second edition Platinum Collection in 2003 for PC. So I first played Half-Life on, uh, the disc version. I first played Counter-Strike on World Opponent Network, WON, on 1.5. There was a separate unrelated video that was talking about hacking. And what I thought was funny about it is the video was about somebody supposedly hacking, and here's this hacking expert. Like, I had actually used hacks all the way back in like 2003 on CS 1.5, just to mess with them and see what they work like. And it was funny to see how much wrong information that the supposed hacking expert, like, they didn't even know the most basic shit about hacks that I figured out just from messing with them when I was 12 years old for a little bit. This is before VAC even existed, and I've never done it since then. But part of the reason was I had seen owned.nl, and I just wanted to. Dude, the My God forums were such a shit show. So many idiots actually bake a fucking cake like a fucking retard. But I think it might have actually been hacks that I downloaded from My God or something like that. But yeah, this was when World Opponent Network still existed. But yeah, Gold Source in general, I never did any. I mean, I have done levels with it, but it's also sort of like with Quake 3 engine games or like Doom 3, where I messed with Doom 3 when it was new, but Radiant, for the most part, outside of Doom 3, was kind of a little bit after that. But, Half-Life 1's version of Worldcraft, and, you could actually make maps in Radiant. Different shit like that. I didn't really mess a whole lot with that back when I was a kid. The main pull for me was Hammer Editor for Source Engine, just because I was so hyped for Half-Life 2. I was a huge Valve fanboy back in the day. And I have messed with it, but my point being that I don't know as much about Gold Source. So this speed run, I think he's a speed runner, but the stuff I'm learning more with Gold Source from that dude. Some of the stuff I already knew, like for example, the lower frame rates will make characters turn faster or like weapons shoot faster, this and that. You can even find graphs. It's more interesting than he talked about in the video that I was watching because it's not like a linear thing where it's just, oh, the gun shoots faster the lower the frame rate gets. There's these weird little peaks where there's very specific frame rates that are the highest, right? It's weird how it works. And if you watch speed runs where they show the frame rate, if you're paying attention, they will limit they have binds to limit the frame rate to very specific frame rates in different circumstances, and that's why. But he didn't even mention that part, or like several things he showed, he didn't even mention, all right, I limited the frame rate there, but it's like I'm so used to seeing it, I noticed that he did that, like shit like that. But yeah, Gold Source is pretty interesting as well. Like Source Engine is truly just you know, it's just the Half-Life engine, right? It's just Quake. Um, Everybody's probably aware of the reason it's called Gold Source versus Source nowadays, but yeah, one of the videos I was watching was how there's different oddities in Source Engine, like the Half-Life 2 games, that really stems from the fact that the engine started, like when they started the game, it was truly as just Half-Life 1 still. In different ways, the editor changed over time and broke stuff, but it would break stuff in ways that you wouldn't even notice. Or like settings and hammer that would, be a string instead of a boolean for some particular variable. That, well, it's like, well, that's how it was when they were working on it, 6 years before release when it was still essentially just Half-Life 1. I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff with that shit. But yeah, I miss the aesthetic of old video games. It's not just a nostalgia thing. It's truly one of those things where games were objectively better in the past. You know, even if you're younger than me, even if you weren't alive yet when Half-Life 2 came out or like whatever, it's easy to see the difference in the quality of the games. And as I said, despite the, you know, cult of personalities surrounding Gabe Newell and, the fanboys of Source Engine stuff, the games are not, like, they're really not that good. They're good enough. They're great, right? It's kind of nuts what they accomplished in 2004. But still, it's like motherfuckers act like it's, you know, I don't know, they just over exaggerate even that. And it's to get clicks, right? It's, this and that. Like, that's why they do this, their glorified synopsis video, because it's easy YouTube money. And it's like, whatever. I just, a lot of these videos I've been watching recently, especially like the Rage Bait stuff, it's like, whatever, dude. They got 100,000 subscribers. I'm not meaningfully contributing to whatever they're doing. So it really doesn't matter. But for me, it's like, I know what it's about. I just, wouldn't mind the hour-long video of just being able to listen to somebody talk. Because when I'm doing creative stuff, listening to music like I listen to, grindcore, technical, death metal, whatever, or like especially if it's instrumental, like shout outs to Corpse of Fire. That dude hasn't uploaded a video in probably 15 years. But his stuff, I've been listening to it again. I've been on a lot of nostalgia trips, but yeah, a lot of these videos, it's like, whatever. It's Rage Bait, whatever. I'm just, the other big thing for me is if I can just listen to somebody talking, that'll help me concentrate. If I'm doing something that doesn't require language processing, like creative stuff, like level design, That's one of the reasons I used to be in, like, Skype voice calls, or back in the day when I used to still use Discord, be in the voice chats just to hear motherfuckers talk while I was doing something else. But yeah, sometimes I'll be like I have been the last few days. I'll be, caffeinated out the ass. And it's like, I'll blink and 12, 15 hours have gone by working on the same custom map all day, all day, all night. But I just do it. I just think it's fun. But I will sit there and meticulously, like one of my exes, when we first met, we actually were on Discord, voice call together in DMs. And I actually screen shared my desktop to show him, me doing stuff like that. And we're sitting there talking as I'm fucking with the level. And he mentioned that at a point, how I had spent like 10 minutes like selecting a texture for a single wall. And that's what I told him. It's like, dude, that's the biggest part of your level design is the texture selection. The textures and lighting. That's huge. Um, and then, of course, I'm very meticulous with the texture alignment. There's just so many things, like they seem like they're not that big of a deal, but they make a huge difference visually. How the level reads, how it feels. And that's something I can't remember who I was watching. Maybe it was that speedrun guy, I think. Or it was somebody else, but showing the gold source, the Half-Life 1 maps. And just, I mean, there's tons of videos like this. How ridiculous they are, and they don't make any sense. It's like the gigantic bottomless pit with one single flimsy catwalk over top of it. It's like, what could possibly go wrong, right? Or like the gigantic fan that you have to like dodge the fucking blades of it to get off it after you turn it on, right? And shit, like it's like that would never be a thing in real life. Or actually, I seen this one guy. He mentioned that room in Office Complex with the Barney and the mall man. And if you go back there, there's like a desk with just this window view to just like a bottomless pit of just pipes for no reason. And it's like the point of it is not to be realistic. The point of it is to feel real. It's sort of like a fever dream. You ever had one of those where um it's like everything looks normal, but you just have this sense of dread. It's kind of in that. It's this kind of surreal, sort of impressionistic with a lowercase I. Not impressionism like the art styles itself, but just the idea of leaving an impression. The infamous back alley to nowhere that so many first person shooters have, right? It's like, how did this car get in this back alley when there's no way in or out, right? It's like, did they airdrop it in there? Well, the confinement, this and that. A big part of that is level design, optimization, and this and that. But also a huge part of it is getting across the feel of a real environment, not like that. Whether it's explicitly real, the layouts are this or that, but these gigantic pipes and bottomless chasms below shit for no reason. It's just, there's a lot of places in real life where it's just that's what it feels like, and it's like how should I call it, something like um realistically unrealistic or something like that, where the goal is not to be a direct one-to-one representation, but it looks how those settings or scenarios make you feel, right? So these ultra narrow, hot, you know, city, you know, streets, and it's just a big corridor with building textures on it. The biggest thing about the gigantic pipes and underground tunnels to nowhere is just how you feel the claustrophobia, the desolation, right? The isolation, all that. It's just about getting the actual feel of an environment like that in this weird sort of impossible geometry, hostile geometry type of, sort of like fever dream nightmare scenario kind of thing. Because that's how life can be sometimes. But yeah, level design is truly an art form. You know, it's true 3D art. and that's just something I've always excelled at. But I'm out of time on this video.